friends, welcome back. Today I'm going to read you a very special story. This is called Peter and the Tree Children. It's written by Peter Wohlleben, and he's the best-selling author of The Hidden Life of Trees. This illustrator is Cale Atkinson, and he is one of my absolute favorites. I'm so excited to share this with you. Every morning before Peter the forester went out into the woods, he sat on the bench in front of his house. He sipped his coffee, listened to the birds sing, and watched the sun rise over the forest. One day, a squirrel scampered up and sat down next to him as though they were old friends. Its black eyes were brimming with tears. "What's the matter?" asked Peter. He wasn't expecting a reply, but to his surprise, the squirrel said, "I'm all alone. I don't have any family." Peter looked carefully at the squirrel. "That's hard," he said gently. "My children no longer live in the forest with me, but I still have the trees. Did you know they have families too?" "Really?" asked the squirrel. Peter nodded. "Tree parents live with their children." "I didn't know that," said the squirrel, perking up. "Can you show me these tree children?" Peter thought, then nodded. "I haven't seen any tree families lately, but we could look for them together." "Yes, let's," the squirrel exclaimed. "Come along then," said Peter. "By the way, I'm Peter." The squirrel laughed. "Peter? Perfect, because I'm Piet." With that, he leapt off into the forest. "Wait," called Peter. "I can't move as fast as you." But Piet had already disappeared behind the nearest tree. Peter trudged along after him, his heavy boots making the leaves rustle. All of a sudden, it was really bright. They were in a clearing full of red flowers. Piet peeked out from behind a stinging nettle where a family of caterpillars was happily munching. "Where are the tree children?" he asked. "It's much too hot for them here in the sun," replied Peter. "We have to go deeper into the forest." Piet ran ahead again until... Ew! Muddy tire tracks stretched out across the forest floor. "Can you carry me, Peter? I don't want to get my paws all dirty." Peter nodded, and Piet climbed up onto his shoulder. They heard a rumble in the distance. Peter followed the sound along the tracks. When they got to the end, there was a big machine cutting down trees. Peter shook his head sadly. "We won't find any tree children here either. Look, the machine has packed the soil down so much that the little trees can't grow in it." Piet sighed and climbed down from Peter's shoulder. For a long time they walked through the forest together in silence until they heard a sound in the distance. "Hop-ho-a-ho!" Piet's nose twitched. "Is that a bird?" Peter smiled. "No, that's my friend Dana and her horse." Branches snapped and the two of them appeared. "Whoa, Wotan!" The horse stopped. "A short rest for you, my friend," said Dana, stepping out from behind the horse. She shook Peter's hand. "Who have you got there?" Piet stood up on his hind legs. "I'm Piet, and I'm looking for the tree children." There's Piet right there. "Ah, I see," Dana said thoughtful. Dana looked thoughtful. "I haven't seen any for a while." "At least I won't have muddy paws here," said Piet. "The horse doesn't leave deep tracks." Peter picked up a handful of soil and let it run through his fingers. "Without machines, the earth stays soft and loose," he explained. "Your trees are lucky," Piet told Dana. Then he bounded over to Peter. "Come on, we've got tree children to find." After a while, Peter stopped to pick wild berries for a snack. I prefer the seeds in pine cones, started Piet, when suddenly a big bird swooped past. Help! A hawk! Piet jumped into Peter's arms. Hey, off with you, Peter shouted at the bird. The hawk flapped its wings, releasing a shower of small feathers as it wheeled around and disappeared. Piet peered out from Peter's arms. Is it gone? Yes, I think he's returned to his nest, said Peter. So even he has a family, said Piet quietly. Can you carry me in your jacket? Piet whispered as he looked up into the treetops. Of course, said Peter. A narrow path led steeply uphill. The trees high up were small and twisted. Eventually, the slope was bare. This is a lovely place. But trees can't grow where there's no soil, said Peter. Oh, look at that, Piet called and bounded down to the clearing. What do you see? Peter's face turned bright red. Someone has cut down all the old trees. What an awful mess! Aren't those tree children? Said Piet. He sniffed one of the seedlings the tree planters had planted. They smell nice, like oranges. They only smell good to us, said Peter. This smell is how trees talk to each other, and it means that the trees don't feel so well. They miss being shaded and protected by their families. Piet glanced down. The poor little trees. This is not how I imagined it at all. Some trees have a hard life, said Peter sadly. But let's see if we can find some happy ones. Slowly, Piet followed Peter. Finally, they arrived in an old beech forest. The silvery gray trees formed a roof of leaves way up high. The forest was cool and dark. Piet pointed to small green wings fluttering above the ground. Look, there are butterflies everywhere. Peter laughed. No, those aren't butterflies. Those are freshly sprouted beech children. I know how they got there, Piet giggled. I hid a lot of beech nuts here last fall so that I'd have enough to eat over the winter. And then I forgot where I buried them. Peter couldn't stop smiling. Beech children with their parents, a beautiful forest. Piet bounded onto his knee. The most beautiful forest of tree children ever, and we found it. The sky was beginning to turn orange. Time to go home, said Peter. When they returned to the forest lodge, Peter made himself a cup of coffee and a snack for Piet. But Piet didn't want a snack. He hung his head. Piet, you're still upset. A tear rolled down the squirrel's nose. Everyone has a family here, even the trees. Everyone but me. Peter set down his mug. He lifted Piet up so he could look him in the eye. I may not be a squirrel, but I like you very much. Do you want to stay with me? Piet's eyes grew wide. Does that mean we're family now? Of course, said Peter. And we can go and visit the trees again tomorrow? Asked Piet. Of course, said Peter again, with a chuckle, and they sat together on the bench, watching the sun set over the forest. The end. I hope you liked my book.